What's going on, all you wild superheroes out there? It's your two favorite super uncles. I'm Uncle Logan Myers. It's my good mate over there.
And I'm Uncle Henry Hill. Thanks for joining us tonight. We are back. We said that we'd be back to cover the rest of the second season of Marvel Studios. What if?
I don't think I can bear to narrate what might happen next.
It was from there when Henry and Logan went into the multiverse. I'm Jeffrey Wright, the Watcher, and I'm going to narrate the first 30 seconds of this episode. So we just talked about American fiction, but cool seeing Jeffrey Wright as the Watcher and this the narrator overseeing everything going on in the multiverse and each episode. And a really cool setup for most of the episodes in the season two. Currently streaming on Disney Plus. It's 9 episodes. We talked about the first one recently, so we're back talking about the rest of the episodes. The first one being what if Nebula joined the Nova Corps. We talked about that last time and had a fun
Mhm.
time with that. But episode two had to do with Peter Quill that attacked Earth's mightiest superheroes. What if? So each episode, of course, is bringing in a lot of our favorite superheroes and what if scenarios, oddball scenarios we would never think of or see. And that's what makes this show super fun.
It is super fun. It's taking an alternate look at what we know about these superheroes, making some of them bad, switching the hero roles, the villain roles, turning the MCU on its head, really. And in the second episode, what if Peter Quill attacked Earth's mightiest heroes? What if, Peter Quill came back to Earth in 1988 and basically he was like a bad kid? It's basically like that movie a couple of years ago, Brightburn. He's like
Yeah.
a bad superhero kid. And that's what it was here. It was Peter Quill coming to Earth being evil and taking on the Avengers, which was a cool premise and a cool episode. It kind of had a more darker tone to it. It brought back some favorites, Howard Stark and Peggy Carter. They, form a team in it. And yeah, we saw some characters from The Guardian, Ego. Obviously, that was played by Kurt Russell in Guardians 2. That character was brought back, the younger version. Just a fun episode, a fun take on that. What if Peter Quill was evil? It's cool to see him take on the Avengers in that episode. I had a pretty good time with that episode. Probably one of my favorites of the season, I'd have to say.
My favorite episode is episode three. What if Happy Hogan saved Christmas? And of course, that's a take on Die Hard, which is one of the reasons why it's my favorite episode. But
Mhm.
bringing the Avengers into Avengers Tower, like Nakatomi Plaza, like in Die Hard.
Mhm.
Holiday party. Justin Hammer shows up with a bunch of bad guys, and of course, the Avengers. Everybody has to save the day and take out the bad guys, and it's really fun. It has a lot of comedy in it, much like Die Hard, and obviously a lot of scenes, much like Die Hard at the same time. But really well done episode. My favorite, probably of the season.
Mine too. Definitely my favorite of the season. Releasing the season two right around Christmas too. This was perfect. What if Happy Hogan saved Christmas? So yeah, like you mentioned, Justin Hammer comes in. It basically, plays just how Die Hard did. This time with Happy Hogan being the hero, and we got to see him actually turn into Happy Hogan like the Hulk. He gets the Hulk powers, and we get to see him, do the smash and help Tony Stark out of this predicament and save Christmas. It was just a cool episode. A lot of obviously borrowed from Die Hard, and it was just a fun episode. And I love seeing Happy Hogan, John Favreau get his due for an episode. Let him be the hero. He's been relegated to, you know, the side piece basically. Last time we saw him with Peter Parker and with Aunt May, with Marissa Tomei in No Way Home, I believe. So this is, seeing him again and letting him be the hero this time. It was just a cool concept and excellently executed and a perfect homage to Die Hard. One of my favorites of the season for sure. Actually, my favorite for sure.
I wish I would have watched that before Christmas. I didn't watch that until
Yeah.
January, so probably would have hit a little different, even though it was an awesome episode. But I think I
Mhm.
would have loved it just a little more around Christmas. Episode four was what if Iron Man crashed into the Grandmaster? That's basically Tony Stark challenges Grandmaster Demolition Derby death match. Again, what if scenario? Something you wouldn't
Yeah.
think of. Yeah, it was pretty interesting. Tony Stark and Grandmaster were cool.
Yeah. Just as random as you'd expect. and for whatever reason, a demolition derby. It reminded me kind of like a Mad Max when they were
Yeah.
racing there and going after each other. It was cool. It was cool. It was fun. And Jeff Goldblum as the Grandmaster, he's always chewing up scenery and the voice work. I like how they got most of the actors to come back to do the voice work, and those that they did, sound just like the stars. But yeah, just a fun episode. A lot like Mad Max or Twisted Metal. Fun episode.
That was a really fun episode. One of the ones I enjoyed. The next episode, episode 5, what if Captain Carter fought the Hydra Stomper? And Captain Carter shows up throughout the season more than any character, and it really leads up into the final episode of the season, dealing with Captain Carter. But she was a big part of this season, really great. I don't know if Haley Atwell voiced the character. It sounded like her, but yeah, she's a big part of this episode. She's out to save Steve Rogers, and it sets her on a collision course with new enemies in this episode. Of course, the Hydra Stomper.
Yeah, she got to lead the Avengers. She's still alive in the 21st century, and basically she's Captain America in this timeline over here. Her and Black Widow find the Hydra Stomper, and Steve Rogers is inside of it and still alive. And they basically have to find out what's been keeping him alive, and the story goes from there. But a fun episode, a great take on that. Captain Carter getting to do a bunch of cool shit. You can imagine her being in Captain America's place in this version. So very cool. That led right into the next episode. And this was, introducing a character. I didn't know if this has any lore in the Marvel comics or not, or if this was just made for the show. But it's a Mohawk woman called Kahori, and it's called "What If Kahori Reshaped the World?" A cool take on, MCU. We haven't really seen a perspective from the Native American. It's a Mohawk woman. She ventures into the water of the Forbidden Lake, and it gives her these, mystic powers. And it involves history kind of with the new world and everything. Basically, she finds the fountain of youth, and we find out that the Tesseract, which we'll remember from the original, Avengers and the first phase, is in it, and that's what's causing the powers of that.
Yeah, and it sets up the rest of the episode. The ending's incredible. This is probably the most visually unique episode of the season.
Yes.
And I really enjoyed this one a lot. I thought it was a really good looking episode. A character I wasn't familiar with, but with history, knowing what happened back then in the New World was interesting. A cool take on that in a what ifs scenario. And Kahori was really interesting. And I like how they ended that episode. Next episode, what if Hela found the 10 rings? This is probably one of my least favorite episodes of the season. I just wasn't really into the character. Hela, stripped of her powers, banished to Earth, comes across a new source of power, the 10 rings, and sets up the episode.
Kate Blanchett's character, Hela, the god of death. Hela's cast out by Odin, and she loses all her powers, and she comes into contact with, Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings, basically. The character, or, it's basically what if she got the 10 rings and was able to go back up against and try to get back into the world that she got cast out of, and she has to go against her dad using the power of the rings and discovering this power that she didn't know about, basically from the Eastern world, and with the 10 rings and all that. So it was interesting. Not one of my favorite episodes either. Just didn't really care too much about how Hela going into it. So, but it had some cool visuals. It had some cool things with the 10 rings, seeing her with those powers, and her fight Odin at the end was really cool to see how, they kind of countered each other and what happened with that character. So it was interesting, but yeah, probably not one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, the next episode, episode 8, one of my favorites up there. What if the Avengers assembled in 1602? Which, again, Captain Carter showing up trying to undo this anomaly that drains all the familiar Avengers and heroes and villains back in 1602. Intro of the episode's really cool. It's low-key taking on a little Shakespeare, acting with the skull and the 1600s and what their lives would look like with him and Thor and the rest of them.
It was really cool seeing these characters back in that time period, taking heavily from like the Three Musketeers and that kind of lore, and having their powers back then and how they were different, and seeing Ant-Man and everybody dressed up in like 1600s, those kind of times. It was very interesting. One of my favorite episodes for sure. And yeah, one that I definitely recommend to watch out of this season 2 batch of episodes.
And then leading to the final episode, of course, having to do with Doctor Strange and, of course, Peggy Carter again. And Doctor Strange showed up a few times throughout the season, which I really loved. And this final episode has to do with Strange, Peggy to help with an adversary, but he has something else in mind, keeping a secret essentially from Peggy Carter, and sets up the whole episode leading into the end, which was really amazing.
Yes, this final episode was pretty balls to the wall, amazing from front to start. Brings back Kahori, in addition to Peggy Carter. Basically, Strange comes back and has to help Peggy Carter stop Kahori because, you know, she basically went on a rampage and destroyed her homeworld and it's threatening the multiverse. So Strange has to come back and help Peggy Carter. But there's a big twist in it that happens. We'll say that. And it just leads to this really awesome final 15 minutes of, you know, some amazing visual effects. And you know, with Strange, we know all the different forms he can take and all the magic he can do with the, you know, he makes the rings and he can, you know, bend time and, you know, create different, you know, thousands of different versions of himself all at once. That was really awesome to see. There was some really cool stuff in this episode. And, you know, we got a watcher here that got to be in the episode too, not just narrate it. He was actually a character in it. So it was really cool. And it was an awesome way to end the second season. And yeah, now that we talked about all the episodes and talking about them again, I really enjoyed this second season. And I think that I enjoyed it even more than the first one. It's a really strong animated show. And, you know, they focused a lot on Peggy Carter in this season. I hope that they, you know, there's so many other characters that they should do. They should split it up. But I kind of liked how it all connected in the end too. It was cool. The payoff was there by the end too. So yeah, I had a great time with the second season. There were a lot of cool episodes here, and only a couple that I didn't care for.
I like the way that it ended too, with Strange Supreme and kind of setting it up for another character, nice little twist, and see that coming. You know, of course, it was much like a Multiverse of Madness. That if you guys have seen that movie, it was awesome. He went to a dark place.
Yeah.
And of
Yeah.
course, one of my favorite comic series and episodes from last season, the Marvel Zombies show up, and then you get to see another
Yes.
favorite character of mine, Wanda, all crazy.
Oh yeah.
So really awesome ending. Really good season. I think I like season one a little more. But overall, I like this season. There's only a few I didn't care for, but overall, they're all pretty solid, all unique oddball situations, and that's the whole point of the show. And I think the MCU really does well when they have the Avengers in it. Hence why the new
Yeah.
movies aren't really, they're pretty much flopping. You know, they don't really have that love
Mhm.
and the storylines of the characters anymore. So that's how they bring them back in this animated show, and that's why it's so good. And love seeing the Avengers assemble even back in the 1600s. Holiday episode being my favorite, and overall just fun. A lot of characters you'd never think to see on screen together. They show up together,
Mhm.
and a lot of familiar faces along the way too. But season two was pretty good. Currently streaming on Disney Plus, 9 episodes. So that being said, I'm going to give season two of What If. I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5 Happy Hogan hair pieces.
Yes, this season had it all. It really did. It's, you know, it took us to places, dark places by the end of it, which was awesome. The Doctor Strange episodes were my favorites, besides the Die Hard episode, of course. That was my absolute favorite of the year and the season. And this is going to lead right into this, the third season, which is going to be coming out relatively soon. They're, you know, actively developing that right now, so we won't have as long of a wait, which is great. And I also read that it's going to have a different writer. So I know that you didn't enjoy it quite as much as season one. So that'll be good news to you. But yeah, overall, I thought there's some really awesome episodes, some standout episodes. And like you mentioned, you're right. You know, seeing the Avengers back on screen, that's really what makes it work. Just the group of them and how they worked so well together. And that's really what's going to bring the MCU back. You know, once we get to Secret Wars and whatever is going to happen with King Dynasty, however they're going to change that or cast somebody else, I think it's going to get back to working, but it's going to take like a strong group of actors coming together and probably bringing back some of the OGs too, obviously. With that being said, What If season two, it's now streaming on Disney Plus, and I am going to give season two, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 Doctor Strange hair pieces.
Going to hear from all you wild superhero enthusiasts out there. What did you like about season two of What If? What didn't you like about it? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to stab subscribe. Also, check out these wild uncles on Facebook, X, and Instagram, and our website, Cinephellas.com, for the latest, greatest TV and movie news and reviews.
What if we come back later this year and we review season 3 of What If? Ponder that. Until the next Cinephellas TV review, I'm Uncle Henry Hogan.
And I'm Uncle Logan Favreau, signing out until the next TV review.
Cheers!